This is page 66 in our notes, continuing on with the standard Geometry 1. We are working on area of parallelograms. So the hardest part is writing the word parallelograms and spelling it correctly. Last time I'm going to write it because now I'm going to draw the shape. It's easier to draw. What's the formula to find the area of a parallelogram? So what do I know about parallelograms? It has two sets of parallel sides. So the blue lines are parallel to each other, and this diagonal here is the same as this diagonal here. So when drawing these, you're trying to match up these diagonals the same and these ones. So you can show this is parallel to this one with two little lines like that, and then this one going up is parallel to this one going up with just one tip. So it has two sets of parallel sides. The formula for area of a parallelogram equals base times height. Pretty simple formula, base times height. It is the same thing as area of a rectangle, except for instead of a rectangle base and height, we normally call it length times width. They are the same thing. A parallelogram is the same as a rectangle. So that's important to know here. You don't have to divide by 2 like you did with triangles. So your base and height always make a right angle. That's how we did with triangles. That's how you identify what your base and height are. Once you know what your base and height are, those are the two you're going to multiply together. So how does a parallelogram and a rectangle, what do they have in common? How do they make? So I'm going to draw one so you can see it. Going to go like this across the blue line, and then this diagonal coming down and this one need to match each other. And then I'm going to trace this blue line over. Okay, so there is a parallelogram, and inside your parallelogram they will give you your right angle. And so how does this parallelogram also make a rectangle? The way they show that, and the way I showed you in my preview before our notes, is taking this piece right here and moving it right here so that we can finish this off. If I were to cut it and move it here, you're going to see how this piece moved over then makes the rectangle. So what's in purple there is the same thing as moving that piece over here and making just a rectangle shape. So you have your base and your height making a right angle. So parallelogram and rectangle are the same. So let's do some examples. Find the area of this parallelogram. In order to draw it, I'm going to make a diagonal between these two blue lines, trace over this far, trace over that same. This diagonal is the same as this diagonal. Couple things I'm going to give you here when I draw this one. I'm going to give you a couple things. I'm going to give you a dotted line coming straight down so that this makes a right angle with this one, so it's straight down. I'm going to tell you that this is 4 meters on the diagonal, 5 meters up here. This one is 3 meters in the middle, and the bottom is 5 meters. I'm also going to tell you this diagonal right here is 4 meters. So I've drawn the parallelogram and I've given you labels on all sides. We do not need all sides. What do we know about area of a parallelogram? So drawing it again. These two sides are the same. We know that that is base times height. So what is my base? What is my height in order to get my area of a parallelogram? You have to identify the ones that are at the right angle, right? Here's your right angle. So what two numbers do you need? You need this 5 here, and you need this 3. Some people can also see if I were to move this piece over here and finish off to make this same thing, my 3 would be here. So my height is the same here as it is on the outside. Sometimes they'll label it on the outside. Sometimes they won't. They'll put it in the middle, but that's where the right angle is. So there's your base and height, 3 and 5. So base 5, height 3. You're going to get 15 meters squared. It's area. You need to label it squared. I did not need all the extra numbers. I just need your base and height to get area of a parallelogram. Let's do another example for practice. This one's going to look a little different. It's only one blue line tall. This diagonal and this one need to match. And then there's your parallelogram. This one's going to go up, ding, 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 ding. Here's your right angle here. they're going to say the top is 6 inches and this little dotted line in here is 3 inches. So how do I find the area of this parallelogram? I know the formula is base times height. So what do I plug in? And you're like, duh, Mrs. Bramwell, you only gave us 2 numbers. Yep, I gave you the base and height, you know, because they make a right angle. So you're just going to fill in your base is 6 and your height is 3, which equals 18 inches squared. Hardest thing here is probably just labeling. How would you get your answer and label it? So make sure you're doing that correctly. Let's do one more example. I'm going to give you lots of information for you to practice parallelograms. This one here is going to be tracing the blue line about that far. You're going to go from this one, you're going to go diagonal 3 down, 3 blue lines down. So 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. And then that same diagonal here, 1, 2, 3. And then you're going to trace this blue line across. Couple things. This one's going to have a line connecting this point and this point going across. It's also going to have a diagonal from this point coming straight down here, and there's a right angle here. They're going to label the top 6 centimeters. This diagonal over here, 5 centimeters. The bottom is 6 centimeters. This diagonal is 5 centimeters. And this dotted line in here is 4 centimeters. So you have to decide here what shape is this? This is a parallelogram. It's got the 2 blue lines is one set of parallel sides, and then this one and this one's the other set of parallel sides. So 2 parallel sides, it's a parallelogram. How do you find the area of a parallelogram? You take base times height. So what is your base and height? Because I gave you a lot of numbers. You need to remember your base and height always make a right angle. So find the right angle. What 2 numbers are connecting there? Your height and your base. So 6 is your base, 4 is your height. 24, this one's labeled centimeters, squared. Again, sometimes the hardest part is figuring out what numbers to use and then labeling it. So the homework you're going to do with this one is a worksheet, page 114, 115, front and back. You are going to do all. Make sure that you label correctly. You may use a calculator, but you need to show your work. So this one's going to work on triangles and parallelograms.